Once you have become a fleshly family, you will have an opinionated language and a divisive way of dividing the land. Eventually, you will become a nation. It's meaningful that in English, the word denomination includes the word nation. In typology, it is a nation. In Christianity, it is a denomination. A denomination means that which is denominated. In typology, there are the nations such as Ethiopia, Egypt, Sheba, etc. In Christianity, there are the denominations such as Lutheran, Presbyterian, Episcopalian, etc. All of these are nations or denominations. All are divided. When I was saved, all the pastors and ministers were happy to use the word denomination. Then the Lord raised us up to condemn the denominations, and the pastors and ministers stopped using this term. Although they no longer use the term denomination, they still held on to the different names. Do you realize that every name is a division? Every denomination, every naming is a division. Do not say that our name is the local church. We do not have a name. The moon, for example, has no name. It is just a moon. We should simply call the moon moon. Some people have said that the American moon is brighter than the Chinese moon. There is only the one moon. Likewise, the church is simply the church. The term local church is not our name. It is the designation of our nature. We are not the divisive and divided so-called churches. We are the church in a locality. Thus, the term local church denotes our nature. It is not our name. Do not consider the local church as a name. The most we can say is the church in a certain locality, such as the church in Los Angeles, the church in Anaheim, etc. There is no king in a family. The head of the family is not a king. When you differ in your opinion or expression, you still do not have a king. When you divide the land, there probably is still no king. However, once you become denominated and become a nation, you acquire a king and you are divided immediately. Originally, unity was based upon one God and one goal, and division was caused by many different worships, even worships of different objects with different interests and purposes. Eventually, families were formed, language was expressed, the land was divided into territories, and the nations, or we may say the denominations, were formed. The result was division. If you look into the history of Christianity, you will see that it was divided in precisely this way. During the 1930s, I spoke a great deal on this matter of denominations. One day, upon returning to my hometown after a period of absence, some friends invited me to feast with a number of older Christian leaders who knew me quite well. When I went there, I discovered that I am of a little over 30 years of age, was surrounded by a group of old men, each one being more than 60 years of age. One of them, taking the lead to speak to me, said, "Mr. Lee, in the past years in your preaching, you have condemned the denominations. We wish to ask you why. Since you have been preaching against the denominations, you yourself have formed another denomination." They thought that they had already defeated me. I replied, "I am glad to be here with you all, for this is the best time for me to clear up this whole matter." The Apostle Paul rebuked the Corinthians for saying, "I am of Apollos, I am of Paul, and I am of Cephas." Some even said, "I am of Christ." The Apostle Paul rebuked all of those divisive peoples at Corinth. You all say that you are either Baptist, Presbyterian, or the Chinese Independent. Tell me from your sincere heart, if the Apostle Paul were here, would you be approved by the Apostle Paul? They said no, of course. Paul would never approve us. They were honest. They had to be honest because I have pinned them down already. Then I continued. Since you agree that it is not right to say I am Baptist or I am Presbyterian, then where do you put me? Will you put me in your Presbyterian denomination or in your Baptist or Chinese Independent? They say we don't put you anywhere. Then I said, but you have to put me somewhere. Shouldn't I stay somewhere? They were shocked. Then I proceeded, by the Lord's mercy and grace, I surely love him. Since I love him, I must preach the gospel to the unbelievers. Many have been saved through my preaching. Where shall I put them? To which denomination shall I send them? To the Baptist, Presbyterian, the Chinese Independent? They had nothing to say. Then I said, do you see the situation? Now, do you see why on the one hand I preach against divisions, and why on the other hand it seems to you that I form another division? We need to come together. We are not one with you because you force us into not being one with you. Now, if you promise me that from tomorrow you will take down all of your signs and forget about all your different names, then I promise you that I will have fellowship with all the brothers tonight and that we will close our meeting hall immediately. Then we can come together as one church in this city. How about this? At this point, they said, no, we can't do this. I concluded, since you will not do this, then who is responsible for the division? After that night, until the day I left mainland China, none of them bothered me again. They had lost the case in the heavenly court. They wanted to keep their divisive denominational names. Some wanted to say, we are the Chinese Independent. Nothing is better than this. Others would say, we are third generation Presbyterians. How can we renounce this name? Still others wanted to say we are Baptists. The Baptists are much better than Presbyterians. They only have sprinkling, which is not right, but we have immersion. We are all familiar with the kind of fighting. When we came over to the island of Taiwan, the Lord blessed the work. We increased in number from less than 500 to more than 20,000. During a 10-day conference in Taipei in 1957, I gave at least 30 messages on the ground of unity. After those 10 days, all the elders felt that we should contact some of the leading free groups in the city of Taipei. There were at least 2 or 3 groups claiming to be non-sectarian or non-denominational, simply meeting in the name of the Lord. At first, we sent 2 or 3 elders to visit these groups to have a thorough talk with them regarding the unity among the saints. Then we invited each of the groups to send some of their leaders to meet with us. When we all came together, we said to them, brothers, perhaps you are thinking that since we are so great in number compared with you, we will maneuver the situation. Be at peace. We have a sincere heart in talking with you. We mean business for the Lord's recovery and for the genuine unity of the body. We are willing to resign from the eldership and allow you brothers to be the elders. We are willing to put all the properties of all the meeting halls into your hands. Furthermore, we are willing to hold a conference to tell all the saints to be one with you and to be submissive to you all. We promise you this, and we are even willing to put in writing and sign in. They were pinned down immediately. Then they say, brothers, we appreciate your sincerity, but we still want to be by ourselves. The leaders of each group said the same thing. We learned from this that they did not want to be one. Why were they unwilling to be one? Because they enjoyed having their own little empires, their own little nations. After World War I, Mr. Wilson of the United States and the leaders of Great Britain and France formed the League of Nations in an attempt to unite all the nations of the world. It ended in failure. Then, after World War II, Mr. Roosevelt and other world leaders worked together to form the United Nations. Are the nations really united? They are only united in their fightings. The same thing in principle happened in my hometown about 50 years ago. Soon after I was saved, I went to see my pastor and asked him why the Christians were so divided. He said, oh, you must be encouraged. I have some good news for you. All the denominations in our town are going to be united. After not long a time, the same pastor told me that the more they try to be united, the more they divided. In their conference held for the purpose of unity, they were fighting against one another. If you do not believe me, gather together all the leaders of the denominations and see what will happen. All of them will utter something different. They may all speak in English, but they will all be talking with different concepts. You will see the divisions among them. It is a curse to be dissenting and to speak differently. If you are dissenting, you will be the first to suffer a curse. If you speak differently, you will deaden your spirit first. Undoubtedly, you will damage the church life, but you yourself will suffer the greatest loss. It is never a blessing to be dissenting or to speak differently. It is always a curse. During the past 45 years of watching and observing, I have never seen one dissenter who did not suffer a loss. Brothers, there is no need for us to be dissenting. Do we not have one God? Do we not have one Bible? Do we not believe in the one Lord? Since we have one God, one Bible, and one Lord, let us forget about all the dissenting concepts and speak the same thing for the Lord's interest. This was the reason that the Apostle Paul admonished us all to speak the same thing, and that there will be no divisions among you, but that you be attuned in the same mind and in the same opinion, and to be like-minded one toward another according to Christ Jesus, that you may with one accord and one mouth glorify God.